Right, welcome back to Tales from the PowerAge. How you doing, guys? You okay?
Awesome. Hello, people.
Okay, tonight we're revisiting classic albums, and we've got the classic Thin Lizzy, Black Rose, and we'll be telling you all about that and giving our views on what we think were the best tunes from that album, but also some insight around that album, which was released in 1979. A lot of great music released in 1979. It was a real, well, what a year to be alive that was. And we were all alive. I know it's hard to believe, but we were alive in 1979. Before we get into this, I'm going to hand over to Jam very briefly before we kick off. If you haven't watched us before, if you have and you haven't subscribed, please give us a sub. It really helps and it keeps us going. We love that. Hit the hell's bell, give us a like, get involved. Tell us what your favourite tune is from this record. Or if this isn't your favourite album from Thin Lizzy, tell us what is. So, Jam, over to you.
I still find it amazing that 2 or 3 times more people than are subscribed to our channel actually watch it. So there's for every person that's subscribed, there's 2 or 3 watching that aren't. Why would you not subscribe? Thank you.
That's because we're all watching it ourselves 15 times.
Right, set the scene. Thin Lizzy. If you have watched any of our pods before, you know I adore Thin Lizzy. I just love them so much. So set the scene. It's 1979. It's April. Punk scene is in full swing. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's a brilliant time to be alive, you'd think, as far as music is concerned. Brian Robertson, the darling of Thin Lizzy, the most awesome guitarist, he's left. The fans are gutted. Who steps up for his 3rd stint in the band? Gary Moore. So everyone's suddenly happy again. Yeah. Gary Moore is the god-like creature of Gary Moore's back in the band, and it seems from him being in, the Irish contingent were in town, and they were going to make a proper record with some real roots, embedded in the Irish sound. Brian Downey had gone missing for a little while before this. When I say missing, he was having time off for exhaustion. Because as we know, Thin Lizzy worked really, really hard.
They were exhausted quite a lot.
But the old adage, work hard, play harder. They played hard. So
they certainly did.
I consider the greatest drummer of all time. He was off with exhaustion.
Wow.
He didn't appear in the Sydney Harbour Opera House gig, the outdoor thing, which if you haven't watched it, after you've watched this, check it out. It's immense. It's so good. He wasn't on that. He was replaced ably by Mark, surname I can't say, Norsey. If you know how to say it, please phonetically put it in the comments.
Norsey.
But he was back to cover the drums in Black Rose, and again, we're going to come on to that. That is outstanding. Also, it was a busy time and confusing time for Phil, because he was becoming known as Thin Lizzy. And he was recording a solo album at the same time as doing this album.
Yeah, it was a very positive time as far as songwriting and creativity. Yeah. They were recording this album that we're looking at now, Black Rose, in a number of studios, which a lot of bands did at the time. But one of them was Good Earth Studios, which was based in Soho. And that Soho studio was where Solo in Soho was being recorded. And apparently they were recording... I think Brian Downey played on almost all his solo album, and also Gary Moore did a couple of solos, and there are various other musicians milling around, and they didn't know which song was going to go on which album, which they do sound very similar. There's some engineers that were the same and producers that were the same as well. This one was predominantly recorded though in Paris with Tony Visconti, the same guy that did Live and Dangerous. And the production is fantastic as a result. Notoriously, it was the time in the band's history where they started to get into even more recreational drugs and more serious stuff going on. And I think you can sometimes hear that in Phil's voice. He sounds like he's blocked up.
Can I just add on that, Gavin? You make a really good point, because you just reminded me of the time, 79, and we know that Bond passed away early 1980. But it was around the time, and I've read this in a couple of books, it was around the time of the Iranian Revolution, and a lot of rich Iranians emigrated to the UK, and they couldn't bring all their belongings with them. They brought heroin with them.
Wow.
And they brought high high
Quality.
voltage heroin. Yeah, and they used to mix it into speedballs, and
they weren't used to it.
Now, allegedly, there were lots of bands in and around that at the time: UFO, AC/DC, etc., maybe Thin Lizzy as well. And that was very prevalent in and around that rock scene at the time. So interesting you should mention that, but I thought it was just worth adding. Now, I'm not saying any of these guys were involved in that, but I think it's well documented what was going on.
No, I think it's like Jamie said, they played hard, and Phil was believing his own rock star persona. And the fact that he just wanted to party the whole time at the same time as being hugely productive, which, you know, you can do for a while and then it takes its toll. But, you know, Scott Gorham was also fully involved in all that gear, so which he fully admits.
Whilst at the same time, we can just add that Phil was now married and he had a young family coming along. So there was a hell of a lot going on. And just what Gav just picked up on, and we'll be covering this off, the creativity is just off the scale, off the charts as far as that guy's concerned. And I loved all of it.
They didn't have a shortage of songs, did they?
No.
We'll go on to the press ad then, Gav. Do you want to have a chat?
Yeah, we'll do the normal format of the classic classic albums from the PowerAge. We know we like to have a quick look at some of the old press ads that we would have seen flicking through sounds. And there's even one for Boots here. Of all places, they used to sell records, people. And the un-PC headline. And on the far right there, the black ink was well and truly used up on that ad, and probably ended up all over your hands as well, because it used to, didn't it? Flicking through sounds, you end up with, you know, coal miners' hands.
Still only had black and red in those days, though.
Yeah,
that's all they had.
It looks pretty good.
It does. It's awesome.
I used to do a paper round a couple of years later on. I know you did as well, Jam. And I remember coming back home, and you'd be covered in print of the papers and sounds and various other publications.
So yeah, that's just a little bit of nostalgia. And then we had a couple of singles out prior to the album. I think we'll set definitely one, which was Do Anything You Want To, which was I remember hearing this on the radio and thinking this was fantastic. We'll talk about the song more later on, but it's worth mentioning that it had a brilliant B-side, which isn't on the album, Just the Two of Us.
Yeah.
And a brilliant promotional video. I mean, I was getting into drumming, and I remember all four of them standing there with big cattle drums doing the rhythm at the beginning. It must have been on Top of the Pops or something, but I remember that vividly from the time.
And you forget how small Brian Downey was on that picture that you just see there.
Yeah,
Tiny.
and thin.
And wearing a guitar for some reason.
I think they all did. They all played the guitar and they all played the drums in the video. I think that's where these images come from.
Just back to the image. Interestingly, you're thinking about that 79. We listened to an interview with Rob Halford and Judas Priest.
That's lovely.
A couple of months ago, and they were talking about the leathers coming in. You think about, they don't look unlike Motorhead or Priest at the time with the leathers. And
no, that's right. It's a good image.
That image was coming strong. So maybe the punk thing was starting to die down at that point, and long hair and leathers was really coming to the fore, wasn't it?
Scott had the best hair though, didn't he? He was awesome.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Okay.
As you say, the long hair, the Scott, and then there's Gary there with yellow.
And then you go back to Gary with his silver suit on.
And then the next silver suit. Brilliant.
Yeah, so I think another single before the album came out, unless I'm much mistaken, was Waiting for an Alibi with Love on the B-side. So you didn't get
I think you mean Waiting for an Alibi.
Waiting for an Alibi, my lord. We used to joke about because it was on a 9 o'clock news sketch at the time.
Check it out. It's really funny.
And another thing that I may have pointed out in another one is they're just ignoring the logo, the classic logo. They just do any old crap. It's amazing. And no idea why. They've got a brilliant logo and they hardly ever use it.
Although they did use the fact that Phil just looks the coolest dude in the whole world ever in that picture.
So this was the third single after the album, I believe. Yeah. Sarah. And noticeable by his absence by this time was young Gary. I've only got 2 of them, so if anyone's got a Phil they want to sell to me.
It's got a bit of an ABBA feel about it, that packaging.
And the video is total cringe as well, so I'd suggest you avoid the video.
But it has, though, and it's got a bit of an ABBA feel if you think about what they were throwing out at the time.
It's got to give it up on the B-sides and not another track on that one as well. Which takes us smoothly onto the main feature. Artwork by Mr. Fitzpatrick, who has done a whole bunch of their albums. Jim Fitzpatrick, as you know, he even did the band images on the back of the album cover, and all the other associated artwork. But again, not a Thin Lizzy logo on the cover, just regular writing.
Apparently, when I was doing my research, there was a lot of controversy over the cover because Phil wanted it in a certain way and he wanted a certain colour.
Oh, yeah?
And it was, and they, so if people are interested, they can have a look. But in the end, Phil was saying, no, I want, and I can imagine him now saying, no, this is what I want, and it has to be done. But they'd already pressed loads of the covers. So they said, okay, yes, certainly, we'll do whatever you say. John just ignored him, got the records out in the shops.
Would that have something to do with the fact that it's the bluest black rose you've ever seen in your life?
Yeah, he's never going to know. It was to do with the colours, and he wanted them all thrown away and reprint, and they said, yes, we'll do that, apparently, allegedly. But yeah, and again, he ain't going to pay that much close attention at the end of the day, I don't think. He's then too busy off touring again, so yeah. But yeah, decent cover.
Let's go through this track by track then. So do anything you want to. Gav, do you want to, any thoughts on the opener?
Absolutely loved it. This is such a brilliant track, obviously very drum based at the beginning, all the way through it. Very positive affirmation of life, and then there's a little hints of talking about Elvis dying at the end, isn't there? He does a little Elvis impression at the end, which is because obviously Elvis died pretty recently, and Phil was a big fan.
For me, it's the iconic drumming, but it's the rhyming, and I'm going to keep coming back to this, the rhyming and the poetry and the words that Phil brings out to all these tracks, and more than any other album of his that I think. Just something about this one. This is way ahead of its time. In this, where we are now, this day and age, and people getting caught up in what they say, and people putting people down all the time, the haters that are out there just wanting to rip everyone apart. The negative side of social, we see the positive side of social media, because we're able to touch base with so many awesome people. And we don't tend to see this like a lot of the younger people that have a lot of shit going on social media, people being mean. But just to quote a couple of Phil's words, when he says, there's people will despise you, they'll analyze and criticize you, they'll scandalize and tell lies until they realize you as somebody they should have apologized to. Don't let these people compromise you. Be wise to. You're not a puppet on a string. You can do anything that you want to do.
One of the best lines in rock music.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
So brilliant. His words that are coming out are just...
And the way he does it off time as well.
Yeah.
If you look at it written down, you think, how the hell does he get that into that song?
Yeah, I do know how. It's because he's a genius.
Genius, exactly.
And I guess he could have been a rapper 30 or 40 years later, he might have just been using the spoken word.
Yeah.
No, he would have been brilliant.
No, I understand what you're saying, yeah.
Interestingly, you make a really good point, which is a nice segue into the reviews. The reviews were really great, the album, in the main. The album peaked at number 2 in the UK charts.
Wow.
But Smash Hits, and I didn't even know Smash Hits was going in 1979, apparently gave it 6 out of 10. So maybe that's who he was referring to.
It's got the classic Lizzy twin guitar harmony thing going on, and it's a perfect start to the album.
I think a lot of these songs have really focused in on that twin guitar melody thing. That was it was really making them unique, and they had their own sound. So if the song came on the radio, you knew it was Lizzy by this time, because they'd really found their sound. And to me, it's one of the best productions. It was the best production they ever had, for sure, in my opinion.
Drums are really to the fore on this album as well.
Yeah, and they sound great too.
Exactly.
Gaps, kick us off with the Toughest Street in Town.
Well, Toughest Street in Town is one of my favourite songs on this album. It's got a brilliant solo by Gary Moore in it, and it's a proper rock track. Real rocker, this one. Absolutely love it. Yeah, much more I can say about this, to be honest. It's a great rock track, and it's so different to Do Anything You Want To. It doesn't really sound like Thin Lizzy, but that may be. I mean, I don't know if Gary Moore wrote it. Did he write this one?
He co-wrote it with Gorham.
It's definitely a Gary Moore track all the way through. It's just guitars to the fore, and it's a really good song, really good.
Okay, Jan.
There's a couple of breaks, aren't there? There's a couple of solo breaks, and the second one
his solo in this song is brilliant.
Yeah, it's really ferocious, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely ferocious. Yeah, and you can so tell it's Gary Moore and nobody else. There's no way Scott Gorham's playing that, or Brian Robertson either.
And this was at a time when there was a lot of stuff going on in the world, and there's a lot of people that did feel the need to be showing how tough they were. There was some stuff going on in the world. But again, a couple of lines from this: "Are you rough enough? Are you tough enough? Can you bluff enough?" Really resonated, I know, with me, because I wasn't tough or rough. But when I was a kid and it got tricky, I used to bluff really well. So that really resonated with me, because are you tough enough? Are you rough enough? Well, then can you bluff enough? And if you can bluff, you're good. You're fine. It's all good. So yeah, I really love that. But Blown Away, Out of Sight, great line in this. The tough guy attitude that Phil did look to go for. He was putting this one out there because he's got the shade, he's got the leather jacket, he's got the, he might have the leather studded gloves. It's like, I'm rock hard. Are you? I love that. It's so cool.
Okay, Gav.
Some lovely drum breaks in there as well. You can really get to hear the kind of unique sound of his toms. Yeah, there's nothing about the first two tracks that let the album down. They're both brilliant. And then sadly, we come to the next one.
Really? I love S&M.
I've never liked it.
Oh, it's awesome. It's so different from the rest of them. It doesn't sound like Lizzy at all.
I like the bass sound.
Brilliant. The only bit I don't like is the S&M. I just don't like that bit, but the bass line's superb. The drumming is brilliant in S&M. It really is.
He's got loads of effects on his bass, hasn't he? But it sounds brilliant.
Yeah. Bit of chorus on there.
Chorus, yeah. And flanger, maybe.
Yeah.
Female bevox.
Suspect lyrics.
This is the first. Yeah,
you're the lyric man. I just don't. It's always about the music for me. I don't really, apart from in Thin Lizzy, to be fair, but I don't really mind about the lyrics. Sorry, Jam. Carry on.
But you're listening to this album. This is the first track that you're going to go, what? Hello? And then you're going to get your solo and Soho out and go, oh, I see. The calypso beat and that. This is one of the ones that should have been on that album. But it's fine.
Yeah, that's true. That's really true. This would be better on solo and Soho.
Well, it would have fit in, but it's awesome. It's very strange, especially being there, number 3 side, A side, third track. But yeah, very
co-written by Downey.
I think it's
for me. It's the drumming then.
For me, it's a song of its time.
Yeah,
fits that late 70s, doesn't it? And to your point around the S&M. So yeah, okay. So probably and hopefully I'm not speaking out of turn, the most famous song from the album, the most well-known, particularly for smash hits readers potentially, is "Waiting for an Alibi." So, Jam, what are you? I mean, it's a great song, this, isn't it?
I put it in my notes, but the hit single, it was massive, massive. Yeah. You heard it everywhere. But like at the start, I always thought, and it sounds ridiculous when I was a child, I thought it was a Valentino's got a boogie shot. I thought, what's a boogie shot? That sounds classic. And I was so dick. But the rhymes, and again, it's the storytelling. So many of these songs.
Brilliant rhyming, yeah.
Real storytelling. He's going down a road. And the story that he's creating with his lyrics, and again, Gap said when he'll sing the lyrics, but it won't always be on the note. It won't be bang on the note. It'll be in and around the note, and so natural. That and the tone of his voice creates such a vibe, and you're drawn into the song. And it's I just love it. And the bebox, along with Downey's, I put constant staccato bouncing drums. The drumming on this is just so brilliant, and it just gets me so into it. And it also mentions Valentino's in a Cold Sweat, which makes me think of 4 years later.
It leads on, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, cool.
And it's pretty much about the same subject. So,
and interestingly, on the album, it's the shorter version of the song. There's a longer version that's on this album with an extra verse at the end. So you put the Greatest Hits album out, and you put a longer version than the one that's on the original album.
Yeah,
it's really weird. Yeah, there's a whole extra verse at the end.
Did not know that.
There you go. That's a nerd alert. If ever I've seen one.
The front cover of that album, cartoony, and that had a massive. That had lots of adverts on the TV for that album. Thin Lizzy, The Adventures of. Always reminds me of the picture the picture on the back of this Black Rose album. It's that animated type of.
Yeah.
It very much reminds me of the same thing. That's a great cut.
Yeah, got the proper logo on that.
The logo, yeah. Come on, people. And this is a great album. You know, this is a bit Queen, great Bitsy. It's really brilliant.
Again, you've got the classic twin guitar on Waiting for an Alibi. And one of the best bits for me is at the end where they do the little staccato bit where they're both going. I can't vocalize it. It's ridiculous, but it's so good. That bit where both Scott and Gary are playing that little part, and it's one of the greatest songs of all time.
That was the last of all time. That was the last bit on that song. I wanted to just oh no, and then it leads out. And my notes here, it said it could have been a rubbish ending, but it didn't. They actually wrote an ending to the song, and it's brilliant. When you listen to the ending of that song, you think it could have just been a regular ending. No, listen to the end; it's brilliant.
Okay, cheers, John. Let's move to the next song. And he was a bit of a soppy old goat, and this song is probably exemplifies that. So, Sarah, you love this, Gav, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's one of these sets of lyrics that's very clever because it can be about falling in love with a lady called Sarah, but it's actually about his little baby daughter, Sarah. Yeah. So the way he's written it works on two levels. It's really smart and really charming. You know, Sarah must be so stoked she's got this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about it is a kind of overdriven guitar solo. Kind of spoils an acoustic, ballady, sweet pop song. Not that I'm not normally averse to a shredding guitar solo, but the song doesn't need it.
Okay, cool. Gaps, any comments on Sarah?
Yeah, exactly what Gav was saying. The solo does detract from the song a little bit. It's not one of my favourite songs on the album, but it's a nice ballady type song. And as he says, the lyrics, there we go.
Yeah. It's got an echoey, golden, warm production, in my opinion.
Yeah, so it's a bit different from the rest of the album. I agree.
Yeah. Drums, I think I mentioned before, Brian Downey didn't have the drums on this one, but he did the rest of the record. So it's slightly different, but still sounds good. There's a beautiful key change for me, and the backing vocals halfway through. But it's got a fade out, which usually fade out, so I'm not a fan of fade out at the end of a song. But this is, and Gav, you used this word at the beginning, the fade out I've put is really quite charming. It's really wonderfully done. But just for the lyrics and just to remind ourselves that, because obviously Phil Lynott is the coolest and the rock hardest bloke. But in this song, he said, yes, you changed my style with your baby smile. Your childlike charms keep me warm. Hold you in my arms, Sarah. And change my world, my baby girl. And this is the toughest. This is the guy from the street in town. And just 3 songs later, he's just like, he's melting his heart. And it's just out there for such a special lyric.
Again, could have been earmarked for the solo album, couldn't it? Because it's so personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Visconti probably said, no, put it on, or the band.
Yeah.
That's a hit single, we'll have it. Yeah.
Get it on there. Okay. Yeah. I mean, you've got to remember the time as well, 79. You think of all those songs that were out. It was a big disco era as well, wasn't it? And all those different bands. I'm not saying this is disco tune in any way, shape, or form, but it was it was definitely a song for the charts, right? So good on him. So got to give it up, Gav.
First song, side 2, and maybe a little bit of a portent of things to come.
Yeah,
and him starting to realise that he's, a little bit vulnerable and fragile. It's quite sad listening to it now, knowing what
very melancholy song.
Yeah, great riffing.
Oh yeah,
great lyrics.
It's one of my favourites on the album.
Yeah.
Okay, John.
It's just that fact that it was all about addiction, and he wasn't. He was an intelligent guy, and it's all about addiction. He's putting himself out there. He knows it's all about him. But on the one hand, on the other hand, he's off to Paris. He's having a whale of a time.
Mm.
He knows where he is and he knows what's going on, but it's almost that's how it is. And he's also got a baby girl. So, yeah, the word is that when he was recording this, he allegedly would have a fag in one hand, a large brandy in the other, and everything else in the other hand. He didn't have quite enough hands for everything that that was incoming. And he was singing this song, and that's like you don't know. You have to take it as read. But this is my favourite track of the album. It's one of my favourite all-time Thin Lizzy albums. I don't know if it's because it resonates so much. Phil was a massive hero of mine, and this is probably the right time to mention. I mean, we didn't get to see him as Thin Lizzy, but we saw him with Grand Slam, and we met him, didn't we, Gav? And Gabs, we met him.
Oh yes.
We met him in 80. Oh, I did write down. We met him in 84. We met him in 84, and the thing that stood out for me is that he was such a gentleman. He was such a rock star, and he was the tallest, biggest, baddest man I've met in my whole life. He was. We were 14, so we were young, but he was just. I can still remember what it felt like. So many things that I've forgotten over the years, but waiting backstage, and then being let in and saying, "Oh." He was so humble. He wasn't being a big cocky rock star, which he had every right to be. He was a marvelous man. He signed us a little picture for us and said, "All right, lads." And
do you remember what he said to me? Because I was wearing a Magnum T-shirt.
Yes,
he said it to both of us.
Yeah, this is how humble he was. I mean, this is Phil Lynott, the global rock star, and he had Mark Stanway from Magnum in his band, Grand Slam. So we piled in, and obviously everybody had piles of Thin Lizzy albums to get signed. He saw my Magnum T-shirt and he said, "Mark's through there." And
that was the first thing he said to me and you. To be fair,
if we weren't going to want to see bloody Phil, you know, we said
we're all right. We've met Mark a couple of times already. We're here to see you, mate.
He just didn't want to see you.
But on what Jamo said, the bloke was enormous, absolutely enormous.
So tall, such a star.
I've got.
He was a big Man United fan as well, wasn't he?
Very,
massive Man United fan.
They say don't meet your. They say don't meet your stars or don't meet your idols. But I'm so glad. I've never been. All you guys have often met loads of different stars. I'll be honest. Since I met Lynott, I haven't queued up at a door since. It sounds ridiculous, but I met
him and Lemmy was the best two that I've ever met. Without
met him twice. Yeah, we met him again, but that wasn't so positive. But
no.
Got to give it up. Great song. Sorry, great song.
Yeah, very melancholy, and like you can really hear in the way he's singing that song that he really does need to give it up, because that's one of the songs where he's singing it, and you can really tell he's struggling. I think. Okay,
so get out of here, Gappy.
That's a lot more upbeat, isn't it? It's it's another proper rock song. Yeah, very good. Really like it.
Gav?
Co-written by Midge-Ure.
It was that one. Sorry, I knew there was a Midge-Ure song on here somewhere.
Yeah, he was co-writing on the solo album as well. So
that was pre-Ultravox, though, right?
About the same time.
Yeah. Right, okay. I do love this song, but it's easily recognisable as a Midge-Ure song by the most annoying electronic drum thing. Go boo boo.
Yeah.
So. If you can tune that, which I can, I just tune that out. I love this track, except for that. Ooh, oh my God.
Well, they ended up writing together. They did the Top of the Pops theme tune, didn't they? Together.
And it has,
They had the same bloody drums in it.
Yeah. I love this. It's a great song. Really good tune. And again, the alliteration and everything. It's really good.
His lyrics are on fire on this album.
Next track was With Love. So, Jam, any comments around With Love before we move into the finale?
It's brilliant. It's got a great guitar hook throughout, and that just keeps it going. It's really strong. But again, S&M, Sarah, With Love. I'm still surprised that all three of those made it onto this record, and that at least one or two or three of them didn't make it onto the solo and solo. I'm really surprised, but it's a really good, strong track, and the rhyming poetry in it again is beautiful. It's really brilliant.
Okay, Gav?
Yeah, I love it. It's a great track. You know, if you were to do like a compilation tape of Phil's kind of softer side,
that would be it.
it's a hell of a compilation album. You know, they should do it. It's brilliant. You know, I'm sure there are playlists actually available along those lines, but it's so brilliant. It fits in maybe with the earlier stuff. You know, it could have been off Jailbreak or something, or Johnny the Fox. It's not groundbreaking, but it's still brilliant.
So Vertigo, if you're watching, I'll never rethink.
Anyone that includes the lyrics, I'd like to make this floor line mine floor line.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the clever ones, then you've got that, and I was like, oh God, but it resonated. I still know most of the lyrics to this album, which is weird because I can't remember what I did last week.
Until we meet again.
Okay. Gav, any comments on With Love?
It's a great song. I'm coming to this album. This is the first album that Gav ever played me of Thin Lizzy, so I'd never heard any Thin Lizzy before I heard this album. And this one ties it all together. But it also, for me, it's a prelude to one of the greatest songs of all time. So, yeah, that's where I'd look at it from.
Okay. So, look, I'm not going to try and pronounce this in Irish. I'm going to say Black Rose because my beautiful Irish wife will slap me if I get it wrong. So, let's go on to Black Rose.
She just told you how to say it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the trouble is I never remember. That's the problem. Jamo.
This wasn't one of my favourites, but we've got two massive advocates of this at the bottom, Gav and Gaps. I think might want to take the lead on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gav, as you're not exhaling smoke, I'll come to you.
Yeah. Obviously, this is Phil really embracing again his Irishness. You know, he'd touched on it before, you know, with Emerald and other songs about Irish history, but now he's fully immersed in it, and he's got Gary Moore to back him up, you know, as we mentioned earlier, an extra Irish injection. And so he's just going through a bunch of kind of myths and legends and a history lesson with hints of Irish music in there, but on a guitar, you know, and it sounds so brilliant. Especially the middle bit where they do the guitar dueling, you know, stereo section. I remember that as a kid listening to this, thinking that is the best thing ever.
Yeah, with brilliant drumming underneath it as well.
Mm. Well, they all were brought up with, you know, Irish music, and so doing that's easy for them. You know, not so much for the rest of us, but proper talent shown there. You know,
and do you know what? That was a really brave thing to do at the time in terms of that general appeal, given that the band was so big in the UK, and you think about all the troubles that were going on at the time, way more complex than we could ever get involved and know about. But actually, it was a really brave thing to do, I think, commercially, to do that at the time. So that's something that you maybe not think now, but actually at the time, that's quite an interesting thing to reflect on.
Yeah, maybe would have been half a nod to the American market as well. You know, with all the Irish over there, would have loved this stuff.
Yeah. Okay, Gaps, any comments around?
Well, everything about this song is brilliant to me. I'd never heard folk music before, and this is just the whole way through. It's just an Irish folk song, split into different parts, as you can see by what we've got there. I've heard people sing "Danny Boy" afterwards, and and listen to the Thin Lizzy track in my ears as people are singing it. It's just immense. But there's so much great stuff in this. The drumming's brilliant. The initial riff's brilliant, and the outro riff, which goes on for ages and ages and ages. It's fantastic. And as Gav said, with the dual guitaring of Gary and Scott on this is brilliant. Go Lassie Go with the solo in that is absolutely amazing. And the little bit before the reprise where Scott Gorham does his dundalun dundalun dundalun. It was one of my favourite bits of drumming of all time. And it's not difficult for Gav. I mean, I couldn't do it, but it sounds so good. And then they go back into the main riff, and as I say, it lasts for ages with Phil talking over it, and it's just an absolute immense track.
Yeah, and he mentions loads of Irish people, doesn't he?
While he's doing that chat,
yeah. Van's the man. George is best, or something.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so you'll also be glad to know, everyone that's watching this, we've actually compiled our top 5. So collectively, we all did a little vote behind closed doors, and Jam's going to take us through. He's just going to talk briefly through what we voted on, and then just count down the count down the
As,
five.
as we were saying, I think it's quite handy to have this. We're going to do this going forward on the classic albums, just to give you guys as well that have watched this far through.
Thank you.
In your minds, you will have an idea of what your favourite tracks are, what they aren't. This just gives you a little insight into the way our brains work, which is sometimes a little bit messed up. But you can see if we actually publish and just show this is us for, this is what we think, this is where we're at, it will give you a good vibe for how we're taking it forward. But quite a lot of agreement. But Sarah getting in quite well there in a couple of those. But you can all see. We would love to hear what your thoughts are. Pop them in the comments. If you've got a burning desire, I think, well, hold on a minute. What about this one? But yeah, otherwise, show us. Let's see the top 5 then, Dill. Gav.
Yeah, there we go.
There are 5 tracks there. We've got we've got 2 joint fourth. Got to Give It Up, my favourite, and Black Rose. I'm surprised that didn't come up higher, to be honest, for you guys.
What, Black Rose?
Street. Yeah.
Well, I was the only one that put it as favourite, so
Yeah.
Toughest Street in Town, 3rd. Do Anything You Want To, number 2. But the number 1 was also the hit single. Was Waiting for an Alibi, but I think that's because it's really stood
it's
the test
brilliant,
of time.
and you can't beat it.
Yeah, no, just totally great. All of them, aren't they?
Brilliant.
It's one of those tracks that when it comes on, you really do. You say, "Oh yeah, love this track." There's a handful in my world, in my head, that have been played so much that still don't bore me, and that's one of them. There's some of those, but love that.
Phil's lyrics don't ever bore anyone. I don't think.
No,
it's just so clever, so clever.
That's
Okay,
the official top 5.
So what came next, Gav?
Well, more Soho, and recording in the same studios, I think. So this time Chinatown, change of personnel again.
Different guitar player.
Yeah, with Snowy White, who also played on Solo in Soho. So all this incestuous band of merry musicians. And only the year later, really cool graphics, really cool cover. Album.
And even though it isn't the classic logo, it's still a good logo. Yeah.
It must have been a choice that they decided to do this, because why? No one else did. Everyone else had their logos, didn't they? Pretty much.
It would be interesting to know, but it's a great, the embossedness, the embossed cover.
Embossedness.
It's lush, and this is underrated. This album, it's a really great album. I see it. All I want to do now is put that on. It's great. It's got some great record songs, and again, it's got the random. It's got the random songs that could have appeared on solo albums. An interesting time.
yeah. All one big mixing pot of songs, I think.
Okay, and then next came some stamps, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I just put this in because it's really sweet. Obviously, there's a Black Rose stamp last year, maybe the year before, available in Ireland. Phil got his own, set of stamps, which is absolutely brilliant. But the people holding the stamps are his daughters and his wife, or the mother of his daughters. So you've got Sarah there on the right and Kathleen on the left, which is just really sweet.
Yeah, it's lovely, really nice. Okay, well, I hope you all enjoyed that, and I'm sure some of you will agree with our choices. Some of you won't. Put it in the comments. If you haven't given us a sub, please give us a sub. It was a bit of a nerd fest for the last half an hour, but I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Sadly, we don't have any Thin Lizzy to share on the live channel, but we've got lots on there at the moment, so please give that a view and a sub. You can get involved with us on Facebook. You can have a chat with us on X, Tales from the PowerAge at TFTPA, online on www.talesfromthepowerage.com, or if you want some merch, that's at redbubble.com merchandise. So, and breathe. Hope you enjoyed that.
Lovely.
Rock in
See
peace.
you later, people.
Thanks, guys. See you
See you
later.
next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.